I am so happy to be here with all of you right now. A lot of you who I've met, I've only met virtually, but nonetheless, I feel like the people in this room are my people. So I'm so happy to be here with you. And since we're all such great friends, does anyone happen to remember where I might have written down my MySpace password? No? Okay, there's this Flickr album I'm trying to get into, my Burning Man photos from 2014. Can anyone help me log in? No? Maybe one of you could help me figure out what is in this old folder I've got that's labeled final_final2. Okay, it's fine. I don't need to get into any of those anyway, but there are some things that I have lost, that I've uploaded to the cloud over the years that I really wish I could get back. You can see where I'm going with this, right? For a while now, all of us in this room have been moving fast and breaking things. And we're leaving a lot of things in the past. That's a good strategy for innovation. But that strategy comes with some risks, namely that we lose a lot of the good stuff. I actually do want to see my Burning Man photos. So when I sat down to plan this talk, it really got me thinking about all of those good things that are lost to the cloud. It also got me thinking about the incredible work being done by the people in this room. If you're here, it's because you are a total nerd about the future of work. You have great ideas, yeah. You want to innovate not just your industry, but the workplace itself, the way we work day to day. And I think we all agree that we are learning from one another, right? We're sharing our knowledge and experience, and that's speeding up our collective innovation. So, now I want to ask you all some questions. I want you to raise your hand if you are currently trying to implement AI at your organization to speed up processes, improve collaboration, improve community. Yeah, exactly. Okay, now raise your hand if you are finding that a little bit hard to do because you have tools and processes that don't necessarily share information with one another well. Yeah, okay, now raise your hand if you can think of somebody at your organization who, if they suddenly didn't show up for work tomorrow, entire systems could fall apart. Yeah, okay, so you're in the right place. Today we're going to talk about why it is more important than ever before to capture and organize those good ideas before they are lost in the cloud. But first, let's start with human experience. There are many reasons why we're seeing the return to office trend, but I think the biggest one is this. If you can't get a quick answer to your question, at least you can shout across the office or pull someone aside to ask them, right? For many of the legacy companies, remote work has not really worked yet. They couldn't land the transition. They wound up in tons of meetings, tons of Slack messages, siloed work hubs. And this is the outcome. This is Michael Dell explaining why he brought his entire workforce back to the office full-time. He said this in January of this year, and I think by December, he's going to be eating these words. Because what is faster than human innovation? AI-powered processing. So for the past couple of years, companies have been rapidly transitioning to using AI tools. As we all know, we are using GPTs to analyze data, to find answers to common questions, to streamline operations, but it is not that easy because AI needs good information to be effective. If you don't have a source of truth outside of people's brains, then what can an AI realistically do? Okay, I'm going to share another couple of quotes from CEOs explaining their return to office policies, but these next two are a little bit less wrong. It is easier to build trust and relationships in person than it is to do it over digital tools. And it is harder to innovate and do creative work in a distributed environment. And I think everyone here knows that because we know that it is not easy to run a company remotely, right? But I also think the people in this room have a big advantage that you may not realize, because companies that embraced remote work also embraced digital communication, collaboration, connection. And now that AI has taken over the scene, we suddenly have a head start on implementing it. Why? Because we wrote stuff down. Okay, I'm going to give you another example that might just illustrate what some of these legacy companies might be dealing with. I don't have any Apple internal information, but what I do know is that they famously pulled everyone back into their HQ as soon as they could, right? What else is Apple famous for culturally? Their extreme secrecy, where two people who work at the same company may not totally know what one another does. So, having a single source of truth, practicing internal transparency, I don't know for sure, but from what I've heard, that would historically be counter to company policy. Internally, it's possible that Apple employees use literally hundreds of different apps and tools to collaborate. Imagine trying to clean up the information in all of these tools. This is from Apple Wiki, so it's speculative, but it represents the list of tools and apps that Apple employees might be using right now inside of their company. So imagine trying to clean this all up, turn this into a workable knowledge base. This is what I mean when I say it's going to be hard for some companies. Do I actually know what's going on inside of Apple? No. But I can guess some of the challenges they might be experiencing. In 2018, so 7 years ago, Panopto estimated that poor knowledge sharing costs large businesses $47 million per year per business on average. And that was 2018. So that's pre-pandemic, pre-AI. That's ancient history in our field. The truth is, more and more all of the time, every company has to transform in order to stay competitive. We know this. Managing information and knowledge is no longer something that companies can avoid. There are no more shortcuts by working in the office. At this point, resisting digital-first work is choosing to remain in the past. But the potential of embracing it is massive. So in the near future, I think we're going to see things such as global teams that are made up of the most talented people in any time zone using AI assistants not just to organize and execute their work, but to translate it so they can work in their native language. Or new people who can onboard into a company almost immediately because they have an AI partner to coach them, introduce them to key collaborators, answer some questions, and so forth. Or project and task handoffs that are truly seamless because the process is managed with an AI and the role of people is to provide expertise and create innovative ideas. This is the very near future, but it is not possible without good information. So let's talk about information. For the past several decades, the employee handbook was like a binder or a PDF. It was full of policy documents, and HR would update it once or twice a year. And the majority of company handbooks are still kind of grounded in that model. About a decade ago, companies like GitLab and other all-remote and open source companies came along, and they transformed the idea of a handbook into a key company asset. So it's the collective intelligence of an entire company, a living system, not a document. A decade later, we are continuing to move that work forward. When I do this work, I am not writing a handbook. I'm creating a knowledge system that empowers an entire organization. When I joined Upwork in 2022, our first big initiative was to figure out the company knowledge hub. Historically, there hadn't really been a single source of truth. We had a ton of good information, but it was all in people's drives, in PDFs, in different emails. We had an LMS, there were a bunch of project management tools. So the result was information really had to be shared human to human because there wasn't really an easy way to search. We didn't really have great version control. So if there were multiple versions of a document, you had to ask a person which one was correct. Work and information was siloed because people were on different systems, using different processes, even different formats, right? And as time went on, things were getting more chaotic, not less. Like many companies, Upwork's understanding of a handbook was sort of like an onboarding tool. So you would start, you would learn the basics, you would learn the policies, and then off you would go to do your work. As a result, the onboarding program was fantastic. It was a strong onboarding program, and they had a great remote playbook, which was super solid. But people only encountered these resources one time, when they started at the company. Once they got going on their work, they didn't really have a unified approach for how to do it. We also didn't really have a good way to understand how things had been done in the past and to learn from past decisions. And most importantly, there was no way to really know what you didn't know and to find new information. Everything had been documented somewhere. We just didn't know where. I've spent nearly a decade at this point building remote work systems that actually work, and I've seen this exact situation before. If it sounds familiar to you, that's because every company eventually gets to the point where you have to deal with the challenge of how to get your knowledge out of people's heads and off of their drives and into a knowledge base so everyone can work more effectively. So we started by thinking of the organization like a neural network. So every piece of information is an input node, and then it needs to flow through connections and layers so that people can get what they need to make decisions and move work forward. When your information is scattered throughout the company, people are embedded. They need to make the connections. So our first step was to work with the people. Every team, every function, every manager, every project owner, we sent out a call for information, and we were collecting not just company knowledge, but what people wanted to do with it, right? We asked people to make decisions. What are you leaving in the past with your old MySpace? And what do you believe is knowledge that other people actually need? What knowledge do you need from other teams? To create this buy-in, we had to establish a system that would serve people so they would use it and invest in keeping it healthy. The next step was to choose a tool. So we went with an intranet-style platform. It had features that supported not just knowledge management, but also internal communication and connection building. It had a killer search function. It returned results fast, so people could access the information that they needed without help. And it had robust permission settings. So we could set up different spaces as open or private, and we could give people access or edit permissions so that they could look at or manage the information that they were responsible for. If you're wondering what tool I'm talking about, it's Haystack. We got some pushback during this process. This was not the first time that Upwork had embarked on a knowledge management journey, and it hadn't always gone perfectly in the past. But this time it was different, because this time we worked from the bottom up, and we prioritized giving people what they said they needed. So in the published over 1,000 pages of up-to-date and reliable information that people actually trust. We created team spaces for every function that wanted one, so people could connect with one another. We had custom info hubs for different types of worker engagement so they could access the benefits and policies that were relevant to them. And then we started to see a search-first mentality emerging. People started to actually search before asking. Next step, we documented universal ways of working and best practices throughout the organization. And finally, we implemented a 6-month review cadence. For important information, if you were looking at it, you could see a little badge that told you it was correct. Another thing you should know, we didn't just get the tool for this, but we also hired a project manager to execute on the project. And that means we did some math. Earlier, I gave you that $47 million number, but that is just a general number for large businesses. This is a way that you could estimate just a portion of the value of something like this for your team. This is how I did it for Upwork, which was about 2,000 people at the time. You start from a conservative estimate that people might be saving about 10 minutes a day on average through reduced meetings, easier communication, better decisions, etc. That's actually very conservative if you think about it, but those 10 minutes add up real fast. This calculation alone gave us a number that was far higher than the cost of implementation. And it doesn't really take into account the true value of a system like this, but I'm giving it to you as a rule of thumb, because if you do these numbers for your company and then you budget just 10% of that for your knowledge transformation, it will serve your needs and it'll be a hell of a bargain for your company. Okay, so we did all of this in 2023. In 2024, the conversation shifted. It's all about AI. And at some point during the year, we got a message from Haystack, our internet vendor, and they said, we've got AI-powered search ready to go. We're going to implement it into your instance. What do you need to be able to implement this? What did we need to be able to implement AI-powered search? I can't tell you. Nothing. Our information was ready for AI. So it was well structured. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Our information was ready for AI because it was well structured, it was accurate, and the team had the access that they needed. All we had to say was great. Flip the switch. And this is why digital-first companies have a head start. This is why companies like Apple, Dell, Meta, Nike might be racing to catch up. They have decades of company knowledge to sort through, tens of thousands of people's drives and emails and old intranets and hundreds of internal apps and Facebook Workplace. They have to leave a lot of stuff in the past, and then they're going to need to catch up to the future. The future of work is not just about how work will change. It's about how we future-proof our companies to be able to thrive and keep innovating as it changes. I've spoken to so many people at remote-first companies about their knowledge management systems, and I know that some of you here have what it takes to visualize and create that future. So I'm going to give you another few examples. Upwork is not the only example, nor is it the most advanced. While I was planning this talk, I reached out on the Running Remote community Slack to get some case studies of how people are implementing AI at their organizations. And we cannot talk about Handbooks without talking about GitLab, my alma mater and a leader in this space. Already, as of May of 2024, GitLab was already dogfooding its own AI internally. It uses it not just for product development, but also for company processes. So it does things like creating new documentation and drafting release notes, but it also streamlines OKRs, improves the hiring and recruiting processes, strengthens research and development of customer stories, and then improves code review, tests new features, and does a whole lot more. I actually can't list it all here. I recommend that you go check out GitLab's blog, where they have a ton of information on various use cases. It's going to be a great inspiration. Next case study is Block. So I love this case study because I think that Block really represents where a lot of companies are right now or will be in the next couple of years. So they went with an AI-powered tool that can search across many different environments to surface information that might be hard to find. Several of these exist, but they chose Glean. And so it integrates with and it searches their documentation, their drives, their email, their Slack, et cetera, et cetera. The experience is very user-friendly. There's a chat-style interface that helps people through their queries, and as an outcome, they're getting less traffic in Slack channels that used to be overloaded with questions. Now, I still have concerns about a setup like this because I'm not sure it's fully reducing the risk of duplicated information. There's still no single source of truth. But without a doubt, this is a very effective step forward, and they could not have done it without a great knowledge base to start from. Okay, last example is Asana, which is one of my favorites. I'm a huge fan of Asana. I'm a user. I'm a student of how they're implementing AI. And as Asana prepared to roll out its AI studio, it partnered with its clients to test various use cases and understand what they could do with AI support. Now, Asana also dog foods its tools internally, and they do a lot of really fun stuff, but this represents what their clients are actually experiencing. So these are a few of the outcomes, such as automating workflows and drafting automatic project status reports that can be shared out to the team. I've used this feature, it's fantastic. Or structuring work better and executing better handoffs so that teams can collaborate cross-functionally more effectively. Or reducing the time it takes to get a project started, especially a creative project, because you're improving the research and intake flow. Again, there are more use cases and more examples on Asana's blog, and I highly recommend you go check it out. But as you can see, there are a lot of things already happening, and pretty quickly we are going to get to a place where companies are relying on AI support for several different functions and processes. And here's how your knowledge base is a key element. With good company knowledge, work gets faster because AI assistants can retrieve and summarize information instantly. With great information flow, teams become more effective. So structured documentation reduces miscommunication. People have an easier time aligning their work with company strategy and working on the priorities. AI then amplifies human expertise. It remembers what you might have forgotten, and new team members can pick up where others left off. So work becomes a conversation instead of a solo struggle. And it's grounded in good, shared information that is easy to access. AI learns from us as we learn from it. And as agentic AI starts to come into the scene, which I'm not even covering in this talk, but Raj will be covering next, we're going to see more and more of a compounding effect. This effect is already transforming companies right now. A well-designed system will empower massive innovation because it frees up your people's minds. But to make it work, you have to stop using those human minds for mundane tasks, sitting in meetings, looking for documents, etc. And you have to stop feeding your AI bad information. It all centers around the quality of the information that you are stewarding, because AI is garbage in, garbage out. Great knowledge management is a boring solution, but it is what will truly make the difference. The humble little handbook has grown into a superhero, and I think it's time for us to really recognize its massive power and potential. Like I said, I know there are people in this room who are ahead of the curve. So I want to ask you again to raise your hand if you already have a company handbook, intranet, or knowledge base at your company. Nice, awesome. Okay, but now I want you to, well, you all put your hands down already, but I want those folks to put your hands down if it is formatted as a PDF, a slide deck, or a single document. Okay, I want you to put your hand down if only a few people have permission to edit this resource. I want you to put your hand down if you're not entirely sure how the information is maintained and kept accurate. Okay, so we've got some work to do, but look at these people with their hands raised and talk to these people after my talk, because these are the ones who are leading in the future of work right now. This community has what it takes. We have the collective knowledge we need. We know what it takes to be future forward. We're not afraid of doing something that hasn't been done before. And we know more than most about the huge benefits that come from elevating the standard of work. We already know that information needs to flow. Now it is time for us to embrace structured knowledge, scalable communication, AI-ready documentation. Knowledge management needs to be a responsibility at every level for every person inside the company. And the companies that embrace this will be creating the blueprint for the next future of work. The ones that don't will be left behind. But if we do this right, it's the remote companies that will be setting that standard. I'm honestly so excited for what's possible, and I believe we are about to show the world how to do it. Okay, so thank you so much. And if you do happen to have my MySpace password, please come talk to me afterward. But really, let's keep the conversation going. I put together a little bit of a quiz for anyone who wants to go deeper into how AI ready your knowledge base might be. It's free, there's no catch, just scan the QR code. And if you want to talk with me after you get your results, there's a way to schedule a session so we can share ideas. Of course, I hope you're going to subscribe to my blog. You'll get updates on everything related to the leading edge of operations in our crazy digital world. Thank you. Have a great time at Running Remote. There are wonderful sessions up ahead. I can't wait to watch all of them. Hope you have a great couple of days.